Now, if you understand all of the concepts that I used there, then you can look at how this formula works. First, you count the number of moves, where a quarter turn is one move, a half turn is one move, a slice turn is one move, and two moves that can be done at the same time is still one move. So you take the number of hard regrips and multiply that by 2. Then add 1.5 for every time you overwork a finger. And lastly, add 0.5 for every time you see a half turn. For example, the wide T-perm comes out to be 16, while the A-perm comes out to be 10.5. So the bigger the number, the longer the algorithm takes to do. Now this is of course assuming you can do D2 as D2 flicks, because if you couldn't, then this number would be different. You'd be overworking your D finger more. Also, if you take the big one and divide by the small one, then you can see what the percentage difference in their time should be. And if we compare to how well I did with them, it's pretty accurate in this case. So here's another example. We have the standard Y-perm versus the setup into J-perm that I talked about earlier. And again, if you divide these numbers, you get that the setup to J-perm should take about 16% longer. Now for me, it took 30% longer, and this could be because of a few reasons. If we assume the formula is correct, then it could be because I am so much better at Y-perm than the setup to J-perm, because obviously I've never done that before in my life. But if we assume that I'm equally good at both algorithms, then what that really means is my formula is not perfect. Now, because you shouldn't just blindly trust how this formula works, I've also posted a video that includes all of the data and my method for finding these numbers, as in why are regrips worth 2 and why is overworking a finger worth 1.5 and so on. So that's linked in the description and you can check it out after the video, but now we're going to talk about something this formula does not take into account, which is risk. For this area in T-perm that I talked about where you do U prime, R prime, U prime, instead you can do U prime with your index finger, R prime, U prime with your middle finger. Now, this actually completely removes the overworking a finger. However, it does introduce risk into the algorithm because I do find this to be riskier when going very fast compared to just using your index finger twice. Now, my formula has no way of taking into account risk. It can only take into account how well you can do this algorithm at your best. If you think something's risky because there's D2 moves like the A-perm, then just practice your D2 moves. In fact, a lot of the time something you think is risky might just be you not being good at it. But there are cases where you may run into legitimate risk that is actually just a lot harder than what you could be doing instead.